Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Amazing. Hi, y'all. All right, I'm Alex. I work here at Flyleaf Books. Thank you for coming and your support for our independent bookstore. Your attendance and book purchases let us have these sorts of events, so we really appreciate them. Tonight, we have the pleasure of hearing from Whit Rummel presenting The Accidental Picasso Thief with Daniel Wallace. Whit Rummel Jr. is an award-winning screenwriter and filmmaker. He began his career as a documentarian. His first project, Tattoo, was a quirky 16mm film about heavily tattooed people that aired nationally on the PBS series Independent Focus. He went on to establish Whitcomb Associates, a Boston-based production house specializing in innovative programming for corporate and commercial clients. Daniel Wallace is the author of 6 novels, including Big Fish, his first, which was adapted and released as a movie by Tim Burton, and then in a 2013 Broadway musical directed by Susan Stroheim. All right, thank you again for coming. We have copies of The Accidental Picasso Thief, as well as a couple of Daniel's books up front. So grab those if you'd like, and I'm sure they'd be happy to sign for you after the talk. All right.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be necessary or not, but it might be. But actually, it's not doing anything, is it?
No, it's great.
Yeah. Is it good?
Yeah.
It's good. Oh, it's good. Okay. So more better. That's wonderful. I'm so happy to be here with you.
As am I.
You're always
Maybe.
Yeah. This book has been. You like more?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah,
Oh, so
good.
put it in the front.
Yeah.
This book has been in my life and in Whit's life for obviously a long time, and it's so many stories wrapped in one, and that's one of the things I love about it. There's the almost superficial story of this theft, accidental theft of a Picasso, but then beneath that there's so in the back you can't hear me. Alex, can we change the yeah. Beneath the purloined Picasso is another and much deeper story, which we will hope to have time to get to all of it. But first, I would like you, Whit, to talk about the origination of this story. What happens to set this whole thing off?
Well, actually, it's a little bit of a misnomer title in the book, The Picasso Thief, because so much. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, good, okay. And it's as much an homage to my father, this weird, crazy guy who was completely unique, who passed away long before he should, and did a lot of crazy things in that short life. So it's an homage to him more than anything else. Yeah, I was born in Waterville, Maine, and had a kind of a real unique childhood there. And my father ran an ice cream shop, which did very well. And we had a lot of great experiences in my childhood. And I won't bore you yet with those stories, but maybe later.
That'll be extra.
Extracurricular.
Yeah, it'll cost you a little money, but it's okay, it's worth it.
Yeah, the R-rated's okay, but the X-rated, stand by.
So, your brother Bill.
Oh, I forgot to mention my brother Bill, who was just as crazy, but not always in a good way, as my father was.
And this is the brother who is working in, I think it's February 1969.
Yeah.
At the Emory Freight Center at the Boston airport. Huge snowstorm. Everything is shut down. What happens after that?
Well, my brother goes in. It's begun snowing, and little does he know that that's about to become still the 3rd largest snowstorm in Boston's history. It was called the 100-hour storm, and there were there was about 3 feet of snow that was ultimately dumped. And unfortunately, he got in before it really started. And so he had to spend at least 3 days there without let up. And he was one of 2 employees that made it in. And he was way out of his depth in handling that stuff because the whole airport had to shut down. Hundreds of planes were diverted or were forced to land at Logan. Back in those days, hundreds of planes was a heck of a lot. And they all just kind of stayed there. And my brother, who worked in air freight, had to take all the packages that had come in there. Most of them not even destined for Boston, just everything. And they were everywhere, laid out everywhere. And the loading dock was too small for the most part, and a lot of them ended up outside in the storm, and it was just chaos. And it took him a good 2 days to get everything halfway sorted out. And he thought, get most of them out, but there were several packages that were left that had no writing or anything on the outsides of them at all. They were completely, any evidence of where they'd come from or where they were going was lost because there was no outside labeling on them. And back in those days, before computers, there was no way of knowing unless you broke open the package and found it. And sometimes, even then, it wasn't there. And I guess what started this whole thing was these packages laying there, and Bill's boss, appropriately named Maroney, came out and said, Rummel, what the heck are all these boxes still doing here? And my brother said, I don't know, there's no labeling on them whatsoever. It's completely gone. And no telling where they came from or where they're going or anything. I don't know what to do with them. And this is, I guess, when Maroney made this story a story worth telling, which you'll remember from a version of this that you wrote up. He said, I don't give a shit, just get rid of them. And my brother was going, what do you mean? And he said, hey, they can't live here. They got to get out of here. I don't care what you do with them. I don't want them here when I get back. And that was enough for my brother. He was a nice guy, a real nice guy, but I don't think he was that honest. I mean, he wasn't honest to a fault. Let's put it that way. And so he took a few of those packages and slipped them in the trunk of his car and waited till the storm was over. And then he drove away. So that's how he got the painting anyway.
Well, so he doesn't know at the time that he has a painting. He doesn't know what's in those boxes. It's like, let's make a deal. Right? You don't know what's behind the door. So to me, it's such a great example of how lives can be changed for the good and for the bad in a second, in one decision that you have no idea. I can't even imagine it ever happening. But this is one of those actions that changes the course of his life to a certain degree, and in a way, your families.
Oh yeah, it changed our lives forever. But at one moment he had no idea what was in those boxes. Although he did know that that painting might be valuable because it was made especially to be shipped in. It was made out of wood, which not too many packages were. And it had some exotic writing on it, some foreign types of writing like fragile. But anyway, it was a few days before he even remembered he had the packages. And then he went back down into his trunk and dug them out, brought them up, and lo and behold, he opened it up. He got a hammer and a screwdriver and opened that package up, and lo and behold, there was an original Picasso painting. And first thing he did, in his ultimate wisdom, was call me, of course. And at the time, I was a senior in college, and I was down in New Orleans, and he called me up and said, "Wait, you're never gonna guess what I got." And I said, "No, Bill, you're probably right. I won't have any idea." And he said, "I got a friggin' Picasso." And you know, as big a joker as my brother was or any of that, he never really lied about anything. So when he said, "I got a friggin' Picasso," I figured, he's not lying.
But such an interesting reaction
I
to
got a
that I got a friggin' Picasso. I mean, everything about that is wrong. But
no, come on.
I mean, and right in a way, in a good way, in a Boston in 1969 way.
Oh,
yeah,
innocence.
Yeah. So he has this Picasso, which he believes is a Picasso. Not that he would necessarily be Upham's Picasso and know that it was, but it's signed Picasso, and it's in the wooden crate. And he's kind of celebrating it, like, you know.
Well, he knew I loved Picasso. For example, when I think I was 11 years old, and I was in the library, and I happened to be leafing through this very expensive book on Picasso. It was basically a collection of his paintings, and I found a pretty expensive print of Celestina, which was painted in his blue period. And I looked around and made sure nobody was watching, and then slipped. That was a full-page print, so I slid it out very carefully, and then somehow got it home without folding it, and brought it home. And instead of being mad and asking me how I got that, where I got it, and everything, my mother just took it and framed it and hung it in my room. and that stayed a part of my, as a matter of fact, I still have a copy of that very painting at my home right now, if you would like to see it. But, so he knew I loved Picasso.
But what's interesting about that, Whit, is I just realized he stole a Picasso and you stole a Picasso as well.
Yeah.
The family
mine wasn't
thieves.
Huh? Mine wasn't real.
Still, it's the same difference. That's interesting. So both of you, one by accident, one on purpose.
Well.
And calling you and saying, "I have a friggin' Picasso" is the ultimate name drop, isn't it? You can't say anything.
Well, he wasn't shy about it either.
No, I think he was rubbing it in your face. Really.
Well, he and I were pretty competitive guys, and you know, I think his real reason for calling was, I finally did you one better.
Right.
And I got this here, and I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. And so that's the first thing I said. Well, what the heck are you going to do with a Picasso? And he thought a second. He said, "I don't know. Maybe I'm going to put it on the black market." And back in those days, you know, who knew about the black market? I mean, the only thing that came to mind back in those days, anything illegal, was the Boston mob or something like that. And that was what we called anything illegal that happened, was the Boston mob. And he knew nothing about the black market, and I knew it, and he knew it. And I said, "Well, good luck with that, Bill." and we hung up. And every few days, he would send me articles that had been written in the paper about the theft. I mean, and they were the craziest articles. International gang hits mob, hits Boston, just crazy things that had nothing to do with the reality of really stealing the painting. And so for the first couple of weeks, it was all great. He was in no hurry to get rid of it. Nobody caught him. His girlfriend at the time who lived with him, said she didn't want anything to do with it, and she hid it in a closet. But they held on to it.
Yeah, that's the typical art collector. Buys something and then puts it in the basement, puts it in the closet, waiting for the value to skyrocket.
Well, I can't tell you how many, well, we'll get to that later, but several collectors do just that.
Yeah.
Billionaire collectors.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the longer he keeps the painting, the more dangerous his position becomes.
Well, he didn't know that at the time, of
Right.
course. But behind the scenes, turns out that the Boston mob, which really existed then, and which was actually the Winter Hill Gang, which was Whitey Bulger's very first gang that he controlled, had been looking for that very painting because Whitey Bulger, who was also an art collector of sorts, and had, went on to great fame in 1990 with the Gardner theft.
Yeah, he
Well,
probably
we
had
still
a couple
don't
of
know.
friggin' Picassos.
Yeah, no Picassos. He missed out on that. But anyway, he thought it was really weird that somebody would dare to steal something from Logan Airport and not have it go through him first. And he was looking for it. It so happens that the FBI had also got caught onto it because the owner to whom it was to be shipped to called them and said, my name is Irving Lentz. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I ordered this painting 2 months ago. It's not here. It's been stolen. So the FBI definitely sat up and listened. And lo and behold, they traced it back to Emory Air Freight. And so all of a sudden, the shit had really hit the fan. My brother was beside himself, not knowing what to do. And that's the second time he called me. Instead of, I got a friggin' Picasso, it's, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And, oh, geez, it was pretty strange.
So describe, if you can, this Picasso. I'm assuming, we might have an idea in our head about what this.
Oh, I have a copy in the car. I just happen to have a copy.
You have a copy in the car. Okay. Well, imagine what that copy of Picasso in this car looks like. No, describe it. It's really odd. It's not something that I was familiar with. And
could I interrupt you just for a moment?
No.
Kristen, could you go get it? I forgot it. It's in the car.
In the trunk.
Anyway, it's a remarkable painting, which if I had opened it and seen it, honestly, I might not have immediately known it was a Picasso, and it will be back in just a second. It will be here in just a moment. But when this was painted, where was Picasso in terms of his career and his age, and what was the sort of nature of the painting?
Well, as Picasso's career went, this is a real late painting. This was painted in 1969. He only had a few years left to live. And it was a painting called The Lady or the Woman and the Musketeer. And he must have done 24 of those paintings of one variety or another. And by the way, for several years, I looked for any evidence of this particular painting online. Saw several that were titled Lady and Musketeer, but none of them were this particular painting. So it was done late in his career, and I think it was pretty much a test for Picasso on masculinity and just what a real gentleman was and everything. Musketeers back in that time were supposed to be really, macho heroes and everything, and he was still examining that part of society, whatever it was. So he took a big interest in that and painted a lot of paintings. with that regard. And at the time, I'm cutting ahead of myself, but at the time, this painting was worth $75,000.
Whoa. Wow.
Which is a heck of a lot of money for those days.
Yeah.
So that's where Picasso was in his career when he painted that.
So it was hot off the press there. I mean, it was 1969 when it was shipped.
Yeah.
To,
Well, yeah, it was actually purchased at the gallery of Henry Kahnweiler, which was probably the most famous art dealer of the 20th century. He had the Louis Leray Gallery in the best part of Paris, was the most famous gallery in existence. And Irving Luntz, the eventual buyer, made his very first visit to this gallery 2 months before this happened. And Irving at that time was a relatively new dealer. It was his first trip to Paris. And I think he was 40 years old when it happened, because during that day there, it happened to be his birthday. And Henry Kahnweiler said, well, would you like this Picasso, for example, here? And that Picasso had become so special. And, you know, Irving took one look at it and said, God, I would love to have that, but I could never afford something like that. And Mr. Kahnweiler said something I'll always remember. He said, when you get to be my age, it's not about how much money you spend, but the friends that you make. And that's been in every draft of every screenplay I've ever written. So he got the painting for $40,000, which is how old Irving Luntz was the day he bought the painting. And so that was the price that he paid for it. And it was still a hell of a lot for him.
I would have lied and said I'm 25.
Where would you like this, Leslie?
No, don't show it yet.
It's a good time.
No, you're not kidding.
It's a good time. Thank you so much, Kristen.
You're so
You don't think it's a good time to share it?
Yeah, well, but I have to preface it first.
Yeah.
This, believe it or not, is not the original. We really did give it back, honest. And on Father's Day of 2023, the day that was a great New York Times article that came out that finally told the real story of this stolen Picasso. It came out, and who should come home for Father's Day but my son, Whit. And what should he bring home but a fake copy of The Lady and the Musketeer? And he said, well, it only took me an hour or so to paint, because if you took any more time with it, they'd know it wasn't Picasso because it was so carefully done. And Picasso never did things carefully. So that was it. And to this very day, this is the only color painting, the only painting in color of this particular painting. To this very day.
It's right here. We can take a look at it. It's such a great painting. It's exactly like it. I think it's really good.
It's even better than the original, by the way. So his artwork can be found on, I think it's whitrummel.com or something.
And this is what your brother saw when he opened
Yeah.
the box.
I think the original was a little bit bigger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was standard
Oh, wow.
size or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, wow.
he did it freehand.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So your brother has this. He calls you. He's not sure now what he's going to do with this. The FBI is the mob, his boss.
Everybody knew about it. And the FBI had said that they're bringing lie detectors the following week, which made it a no-brainer.
Yeah. Because those lie detectors are always so accurate. Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
they
they're
were
magical.
then. They were then.
Oh, well, I think people hadn't learned how to lie really well. But
Yeah,
then
I
they
guess
did.
it was.
Well, now
We lied.
they have one where you can test yourself, and you can't tell the difference anymore between lying and telling the truth.
Yeah.
I just lied. You had no idea. See? It's
There's
different
another one.
now. There's another one. So you don't know what to do. He calls you. You don't know what to do. So he calls the person who, in the end, you would always call when you were in a fix.
Well, he asked me, what the heck should I do? It wasn't heck, but what the heck. He said, what the heck am I going to do? And the only thing that I could think of was, and it came out immediately, instinctively, call Dad. Because my father was not your usual dad, at least as far as I can tell. He'd always had kind of an odd way of looking at right and wrong and good and bad and all that stuff. He didn't go by the book necessarily. But he was one of the most decent men I ever met. And I knew he could figure it out. I mean, he got us out of every scrape imaginable. For example, when I was 12, maybe a year after I stole that print from the library, I got caught shoplifting. And the guy at well, everybody does it, right?
Things are starting to look bad for your whole family.
Well, and so they called the guy took me over to the cops. The police station, fortunately, was right next door. And
So great.
went to the cops, and believably or unbelievably, the cop in the store, in the police department, knew who my father was because he directed traffic for him at his store in the summer. And I said, hi, Dan, I'm in some trouble here. And so Dan called my dad. My dad came down, and he said, first of all, what did he steal? And, I listed the items and stuff and the value. And, which back in those days was pretty expensive.
What did you steal?
Is this thing on? Are you loud enough? Well, am I,
Just put it right up to your lips.
is this better? Is this better?
No, it's not on.
Yeah.
I'm seeing red. Anyway,
But your voice is,
Yeah, your
your voice is
good.
excellent.
Your
You can
voice
hear
is
me.
good.
I can hear you.
Good for now. I'll bring it back. You guys can.
Okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where was I?
You're talking about the thing you stole.
Shoplifting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My dad said, there's no need to get him arrested or any of that. I'll take care of this myself. We can handle it. And believe me, you will be disciplined. And everybody knew my father. They also knew he was a man of his word. And if he said, you'll be disciplined, I was going to be disciplined. But I couldn't believe my luck when I left the police station because I couldn't believe. I got in the car, said, geez, I can't believe it. No reform school, no arrest record. I'm set. And no sooner as I'd done that, my father started musing. He said, I think I have the punishment for that shoplifting you just experienced. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, pretty simple, really. No stores for a year. And I thought, geez, I got away pretty easy. No store. But that meant no corner store, no clothing store, no departments, not one store where you could buy anything at all for a full year. And when you're 12 years old, that's quite a sacrifice. And I guess the weirdest thing was having my mother have to go into the clothing store and come out into the car on the other side of the sidewalk with every pair of pants that I bought, and so I could change my pants in the car. Anyway, that's another story, but that was a pretty tough one. So my father was not an easy guy necessarily.
But he was crafty.
Oh, yeah, my father was all-knowing, all-seeing, all-hearing, all everything. When I was a kid, you never, ever crossed my dad. If he said to do something, we always did it. Never thought twice about, oh, is Dad going to know about this? Because he always did. That was, never did he he let us get away with anything. So he always knew that. And so when he called my brother, or my brother called him, he had some choices that he had for my brother. He said, well, my brother said, listen, Dad, I stole a Picasso painting and I want to give it back. And my father, you know, that's like crazy kids. And he was pretty used to it too, because my brother was no angel. And
Yeah.
and anyway,
We don't even need to, we believe that after everything that's happened. With you shoplifting.
well, my brother was the worst. Well, he was
We don't have time to go into
no.
this.
Anyway, so my brother was wondering, after you said, I stole a Picasso and I want to give it back, my father said, well, you have some choices here, Bill. You could, for example, you could just bury it in the basement. We're building an addition onto the restaurant we just bought, and you could put it under the floor, the new floor that we're pouring. And in 20 or 30 years or so, you could dig it out and claim that you just found a Picasso, and who knows, it could be worth $200,000 by then. And my brother said, no, that's not going to work, Dad. For one thing, lie detectors are coming and they're not going to wait. And so then my father said, well, another thing you could do is just give it back. Just be honest with them, give it back, tell them what happened, and be as honest as you can. But my brother, he was an honest guy, but he wasn't that honest. And he said, but I've had it for a couple of months already. They're never going to buy that. And my father said, well, you're probably right. And he said, I have something else, another idea that might work. And let me think on it a little. And he hung up, and his first call was to me. There I am, way down in New Orleans. I got no way of helping out. I didn't think. So the father said, well, I guess you've heard about your brother's little problem with the Picasso. And I said, oh, more than enough, thanks. And he said, well, I think I have a solution. And I said, really?
So I'm going to stop you right there. He does have a solution. It's remarkable, and it is obviously the subject of the book, the end of the book, The Accidental Picasso Thief, the true story of a reverse heist. A reverse heist, probably the only one in existence. And how that happens is the end of the adventure in that regard. And we can talk about that later. If you want to ask about it, please do. The one thing I wanted to touch on, in case it didn't come up in the Q&A, is that this took place a long time ago, and it's a story that belongs to your family. Bill has passed away, your dad has passed away, and
My mom's passed
Your
away.
mom's
Everybody
passed
who
away?
was anybody passed away.
so the story really is yours, and it's yours to tell. I think the storyteller owns the story. That being said, do you feel a responsibility to, say, your dad, your brother, to get this right?
I do, I think, because I owe it to them. It's such a wonderful story, and I didn't tell it. I had no right to tell it until 2008, at the very earliest, because that's when my mother died. And my father said, right after it happened, he said, whatever you do, don't tell your mother, because she wouldn't like it. And so I didn't. I waited, what was it, 40 plus years or something like that, or 40 years to tell it. And then I waited another 10 years because after all those deaths in the family, I didn't feel in the mood to write it, to say anything anyway.
Right. When did you feel like, even though your mom was still alive, and you weren't going to write it until she died, did you have an idea that it would be a great story prior to that?
Oh, always. I always thought, geez, what a wonderful thing this would be. And I wrote several versions of screenplays that were enough fiction that Whitey wouldn't get suspicious. Now, you can laugh at that, but until 2011, Whitey was on the lam, and my brother was scared shitless of that guy. He did not want to encounter him because he still thought that Whitey Bulger held a grudge because my brother had stole that painting. And funniest thing, but you know, when Whitey was finally caught in 2011, my brother finally gave me permission to tell the story. And that was so funny.
Funnier still, he was captured in Santa Monica, California, and there was somebody very close to you who was in Santa Monica at that very same time, and that was you.
Yeah. Well, this is a coincidence beyond belief. I was 2 blocks away, sitting in the 3rd Street Promenade, having a Starbucks coffee, a venti latte, and
Did you steal it?
I was pretty flush. I think yeah. Anyway, we were sitting there, and believe it, this coincidence is just too good to be true. What I had done is fly out to LA for a week because I had written my best version of the screenplay at that time. And I decided, to hell with it. I'm going to involve Whitey in that fictional screenplay, and he's going to be a major part of it. Not only that, but my brother, who was a character in that screenplay, also took part in the Isabella Gardner Museum heist. And it was a great story. And I was telling my good friend, whom I've known forever, in that 3rd Street Promenade coffee shop, exactly, you know, what was going to happen and all this stuff. And I didn't get it sold, but I got some pretty good feedback, and not an offer, but a few solid nibbles. And that is at the moment when people started rushing by, and we're out in the street, sitting there having our coffee, and what's happening? And people, they got him, and got who? And then a couple of minutes later, they got Whitey, and I'm, no, this is just too big to believe. And we immediately ran down there, and lo and behold, we went to the building where Whitey was arrested, and they just reopened it. And there happened to be a news journalist there who videotaped me telling the Whitey Bulger story about how Whitey, for the last 50 years, had been wanting to know who'd stolen that Picasso, and they never caught him. And to this day, it's still the biggest coincidence of my life. Yeah.
Many times in the book, you write, when you're relating a scene, you'll say, as I recall, as I remember it. And to me, it's you talking to your brother and your dad, that you're really getting a lot of this third hand, and you don't want to say something that as if it were accurate when it's not. Although the story that you tell, even if you omitted all of those excuses or explanations, it makes a great story in any case. And can we ever really know what happened? I mean, in any sense, something that happens that long ago, haven't we reinvented the story over the course of time and then believe it to be true?
Well, I would say that, except that several newspaper articles the following day recounted the experience pretty accurately, I think. And it went something like this, that a mysterious car pulled up and got out right near the Ritz-Carlton down near the Commons in Boston.
So this, just so you know, this is the reverse heist you're talking about now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
will people believe it? They
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it, except that it was pretty well seen by people at the time,
Right.
but they didn't know what was happening.
Right.
So my brother took his '62 Chevy SS, black with red interior for those, pretty nice car.
Yeah.
And he took my father down to the museum, and they were going to return it to the museum directly. But fortunately, there were some guys that came out on the deck, on the loading dock for a smoke break. And so my father said, okay, plan B. They drove down to the Commons, stopped. My father told my brother to park. He said, if I'm not back in 5 minutes, leave. And my brother was looking at me, what? And my father had the foresight to put on a pretty good disguise. He had a fedora hat, a long gray trench coat.
Walked with a limp.
Pardon?
He walked with a limp.
Yeah, he walked backwards.
Backwards.
But he was pretty well disguised. And he walked up to a cabbie and opened the door with the painting and slipped it in the back seat. And he said, I want you to. No, I don't think he used it actually. He could have. And he would have been believed, because my father was a good actor. Anyway, he said, I would like you to return this to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, to the front desk. And I would like you to tell them that just where it came from. And where did it come from? Yet, I mean, the cabbie had no idea, because he didn't know him from Adam. And my father pulled out a crisp $20 bill, which back in those days was worth at least $50. And the museum was only a few blocks away, and the cabbie's eyes lit up and stuff. And my father said, and if you don't do exactly as I told you to, I have your name on the medallion that you've placed here, so I know where to come to. And so pretty uncertainly at that point, my father left, got back in my brother's car, the cabbie took off, and my brother stopped at every wastebasket down every alley that they could think of afterwards, where my father disposed of a different piece of the disguise and drove away. And the next day, the papers ran out with Robin Hood returns Picasso. And you don't know who Robin Hood is yet, but if you wait around long enough, you might hear.
That's so incredible. Everything about it's incredible, and I'm so happy that you wrote this book. I want to give other people a chance to ask questions they're curious about now. So if anybody does have a question, clarification about this very complicated story, please.
Do you feel obligated at all to return the picture that you took out of the book?
After all that's happened, no way. No way. I'm looking for the original now.
He's working on his disguise.
No, I still feel a little bit. Not enough to return it.
Yes.
Would you tell us about Robin Hood?
Oh, since you twisted my arm, maybe I will. So when my father called me, he said, well, I guess you've heard about Bill's little Picasso mess. And I said, yes. He said, well, what I'd like you to do as your part in it is to go down into the French Quarter and find the most expensive stationery store you can find. And when you're there, I want you to pick up some foolscap. And foolscap? What's foolscap? And he said, well, it's the kind of stationery that rich people write on. That it's a little bit bigger than letter size, and make sure it's really expensive. And not only that, but pick up an ink pen, not just an ink pen, but the kind that you write with fountain ink, and make sure the nib is, better yet, get a feather. And I did. And this is, I want you to write a little something on that letter that is going to be with the painting when it returns. And so I want you to make it brief. I want you to make it so they'll never suspect that it was your brother, this lowly guy working in the loading dock. And I want you to make it seem as though you returned it out of the kindness of your heart. And I said, well, geez, what should I say? And to this day, this is still the most important thing my father ever said to me. I don't know what to write. You're the writer. You do it. So I did. And it turned out that what the note said was, to whom it may concern, please return this for paintings stolen throughout the country. Please return this to the museum in return for some of the paintings that have been stolen throughout the country. And a few, geez, I'm slipping on it right now. I don't remember the exact words, but anyway, it's not important. And I signed it, Robin Hood, R-O-B-B-I-N apostrophe. How clever is that? Hood. And that's what the paper said, Robin Hood. And to this day, I'm really proud of that.
You should be.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm a writer.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you keep this secret for that long? Like, were there ever any times that you almost slipped up telling that secret?
As far as practicing?
No, not telling the story for so long.
Oh, geez, I lived with a woman for 8 years, I think. After a few miscapades, I finally got to film school, and I lived with this woman for 9 years. And we were pretty good buds. And I never told her this story. So that gives you a pretty good idea of how secretive I was. My mother, God bless her, I don't know, maybe she did know, but she never said she did. So I stood pretty close to being faithful to that.
Yeah.
Did your son Whitty know his grandfather?
No. Geez, what a shame.
Oh,
Never did. He died before he was born.
Did he know the
A good long.
story? When did he learn the story?
Oh, I think, so I had some minor success at screenwriting or whatever, and one of the things that I wrote was stealing Picasso, the first version, as part of the awards and all this stuff. And so I wrote, but it was fictional. And I think he was 12 or 13, and I gave him that screenplay to read. It was far enough away from the truth that I didn't have to worry. But the first thing he wanted to do was send it to Martin Scorsese. That's why I still like the guy.
You've said a lot about your father. Could you give us some illustration of his uniqueness?
Well, boy, I could spend the whole evening. He was really unique. He never told me anything at all, zero, about anything in his life before he got married in 1939. So I knew nothing. As a child, as a young adult, and all the way up to when I was 45 years old. And when I was 45 years old, I found an old chest that he had as a youngster that was sent to my mother as, you know, long after he died. She got it sent because she didn't know any better. And I looked in that thing. It was 1995, I believe. And I looked through that and discovered who my father really was. Mm-hmm. His real mother died when he was 8 years old. Never told me that. He had gone to live with some maiden aunts that were not friendly or nice at all. Never told me that. He left there when he was 17, got on a merchant marine ship, went to Hong Kong or something like that when he was 17, then came back and then moved to New York City, where he became an equity actor. For 3 years, he had his actor's equity card and was in several plays for a few years and lived a heck of a wild life up until he married my mom in 1939. And I knew none of that before I was in my mid-40s. And it was such an exciting time. I felt I owed him twice as much as I did before because he had such an interesting life. But damn it, he never told me any of it. And why he didn't, I still don't know. It was probably to maybe in some way protect me, but I'll never know for sure. But that, for me, that's the crux of the story. The guy I never knew until I was in my mid-40s turned out to be the biggest showman of all.
And it's all in this book.
Yeah.
Where did your brother keep the painting?
He lived in a little apartment in Medford, Massachusetts, and second floor walk up, and he kept it in the closet next to the stairwell. And I don't think his girlfriend ever saw the painting because she was afraid of looking at it, afraid she'd get tainted somehow by it. Here's another little piece of irony. In June, I believe it was June 12th, my brother came home afterwards and got married. And he had to get married because he got her pregnant. And my nephew and I figured it out like 30 or 40 years ago, the exact day that he probably was conceived. And that day was the exact day, April 1st, April Fool's Day, that the painting was returned. So he was born 9 months to the day after that Picasso was returned. Wow. And that is really a funny thing to me.
So you're saying your brother returned the Picasso and then had sex with his
Yeah. What a great night.
Thanks for explaining.
But I don't think my brother would have gotten married had he not been forced to. Because he'd just gotten out of the Coast Guard and all that. And anyway, he was happy to get married. But the same night that he got married, I remember his wife saying, well, as they were driving away for their honeymoon, my father said, well, it's your problem now. The day after that evening, I, on a different adventure, had sunk my parents' car into a pond. So it couldn't even be seen. It was like below the surface. And I don't know how, to this day, I don't know how it happened. I mean, geez, you know. And my father said, how did that happen? So, how would I know, Dad? I wasn't there. And he said, well, you know what, Whit? I got rid of your brother last night, and until you go on the Marine Corps, I volunteered for the Marine Corps, and I had 3 months that I could wait around and just fool around in. I didn't have to go. But that day he said, you know, maybe you better take off too, because it might be better all around if you took off too. So that was the last time I saw my dad, was the day that my brother got married, until after I got back from the Marine Corps when he died. And it's so funny because we both disappeared on the same day. Me a day later, because I wasn't available at the time of my brother's departure. But it's so funny that we both disappeared on the same day, and we both discovered my dad's death, which is the worst day of my life forever. Still will be, always will be. And that's the last time I really got to see him. And anyway.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the painting now?
Pardon?
Where's the painting now?
Right here. It's right here.
Well, the bigger one.
Oh, the bigger one. Another great question. So 56 years ago, and as I said earlier, I've never been able to find this particular painting on the internet. And in 2022, I called a cyber sleuth and asked her if she would help me finding some evidence that this painting had actually existed. I had no idea that it actually existed. And she said, well, I don't know. The only pictures you have are black and whites from the newspaper articles, right? And I said, yeah, it's pretty clear, but you know, they're black, and there's never a good angle because they're kind of part of a bigger photograph, and it's just kind of there. But she said, well, let me see what I can do. She thought it was a funny story and said, let me see what I can do. Within 3 days, she called me back. And she said, you know what? I think I found it. I think I found evidence that this painting right here actually existed somewhere else. And I said, well, how, where? And she said, well, I have a copy, or I have access to a copy of a catalog that was printed in 1970 that was made in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And you may be able to buy it on eBay. I think there's one copy available. And I immediately, as soon as I sent away to eBay and got the only copy of that catalog. And in that catalog, you thumb through the catalog, and in that catalog, and then the catalog was made by wealthy patrons in Milwaukee who had lent their Picasso images for the show. And I looked it up, and there it was on one page, a picture of this exact painting. And I looked up, and I looked it up and discovered that It was owned by a guy named Sidney Cole, Kohl, in 1970. And I immediately looked him up online and saw that, oh, here he is, Sidney Cole, Cole's department store. He's a billionaire that lives really near Mar-a-Lago. And he's been there on a couple of trips. And I called him up after a heck of a long wait trying to find a number that worked. After a few months, after trying to reach him on landline, on email, and all this stuff, I called him up, and his wife answered and said, hello. And I said, is this Dorothy Cole? She's 96 by this time.
Yeah.
Yes. And I said, yeah, I can't believe I got a billionaire on the phone with no pre-call. And I said, you are not going to believe this, but I told her a very abbreviated story of the Picasso theft and all that. She said, and I said, I'm so glad to finally find who owns this, because there hasn't been any evidence that it existed ever since that catalog came about. No cost, no record of any sales, nothing. And she said, well, you'll have to tell my husband about this. He'll be back from shopping in an hour. And I go, wait, Sidney Cole does his own shopping? You know, so after an hour, the longest hour I ever spent, I called him back and I said, Sidney Cole, you are so much the man I want to talk to. I had this experience back in 1969 where my family stole this Picasso and he interrupted. He said, don't you ever call this number again. And I went, what? Click, he hung up on me.
Oh.
But at that very moment, I knew who still had the painting. And this story is not over yet, because he's 97 now, I think. Both he and Dorothy are well into their late 90s, both living, but both ready to croak. And I can't wait until they do, because when that happens, we'll finally find out where the painting is from, where it's been, and I can finally get my picture taken with the real thing. With my son and my brother's son next to it. The three of us are going to be smiling loudly, because now the story has been told.
Perfect way to end this.
That's it.